Right, here we are, turn 3, ready to start the NATO side of the first impulse. And the second video, it used up a lot of video on the last impulse, and went into a lot of detail and a fair amount of grousing about other things, as usual. It feels to me as though the Warsaw Pact advances have slowed significantly. The first turn was hindered by a couple of things. One was entering via the roads meant that I had to come in a specific column order, and that column order prevented me from using artillery correctly. I also didn't really have a view of how artillery should be used in this system, and it's really vital. The second turn, I made huge leaps and gains. The covering forces were out of the way for the most part. I knew how to use the system better, and NATO had pulled back, to try to form some lines. And many of those lines were penetrated. This third turn, it's been a little harder to get a grip on the NATO forces. So what do we got here? Well, we got a little bit of interpenetration here that the West Germans are going to have to pull back from. This is a hard map to defend. The river line over here, yeah, we've still got some of this. Unfortunately for us, this is sort of, the furthest along. We may just have to give up some of that river line in order to extend our line to the edge of the map, essentially. And where is Austria? Austria is just down here. So there's no real reason why that part of the map is not available to for the Soviets to kind of work their way around on. Again, this dips down over here, and getting the excess troops from that bulge would be valuable. Unfortunately for the NATO side, the good terrain is where the bulge is. And do I want to give that up? I don't know. Or is this good enough terrain, say, to shorten my line? Coming up here to the river line, we've got a couple of penetrations happening. There was already one here at the beginning of this turn, and that's this guy out here. But now it looks like that river line is, if not completely subverted, in danger of being subverted. I could fall back, surround this, attack it, try to create some other line. But what, give up Nuremberg? I don't know. I really don't know. It's hard decisions for NATO to make, certainly on this map, but across the board, honestly. And then you can see we sharply have given up a lot of ground because of the terrain being better, and also to link up to the good terrain here that we're defending. We weren't able to hold this. We had been pushed back here, so that's fine. Decent terrain over here on the Fulda Gap area. A bit of a weak spot in the terrain here that the West Germans are trying to hold. And then the terrain gets better here, but we've got one U.S. armored division in place there. Some Germans cutting through here as we drop down to Kassel. And then the poor British Army. So utilizing the 5th Corps map, Soviet units have been able to penetrate the Weser relatively easily and in force. And it looks like, again, similar to the riverline breaches here, this is going to be enough to pretty much take out this entire map, as far as I can tell. The defenses were thrown up here ahead of the river. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I haven't done any bridge blowing, mainly because, you know, there's a lot of little rules in this game and a lot of special case type stuff, and that's one of them that it hasn't gelled in my head that I should be doing that. Some of them, like the paratroopers, yeah, I use them a little bit, mainly to knock out helicopters. But see, the problem is, while I was holding this river line, then some good terrain down here, down to the city of Hanover, more or less, and the river over here, could all be held. But if I fall back from here, I've got to give Hanover up. If I give Hanover up, that opens this up. Now, yeah, there's no great answer in terms of holding the line anywhere. And really, the Bayard map has largely been collapsed by the advance from the Fulda Gap area, to an extent that I feel like it's just been turned into a significant problem. Over here, this map has also held up pretty well against, as did the Bayard, against its own enemies, the Warsaw Pact forces that were on this map and dedicated to it. But again, advances coming off the Bayard map have subverted the position crossing this river and then over here rather heavily. And there's not a lot of defense. I mean, I would have to fall back all the way up here to the Weser, which, you know, that may be what I just have to do, because if I give up Hanover, that's more or less where this is going to fall back to. So that is a possibility. Hamburg is an extremely difficult area to take. The Pact has had a really hard time dealing with this city. It's a hell of a fortress. I would love to be able to hold it. This river line is holding up really, really well. But can it hold up to troops slamming it from behind? No, of course not. Well, one thinks, no, of course not. Who knows with this system? It might behoove the Soviets more just to keep punching forward as per their doctrine, and not really try to close things out. But to me, it feels as though NATO is heavily disadvantaged by the positions. Let's get those counter battery guys turned around. By the use of the other maps, right? Each of these maps on its own is fairly defensible. But when you start allowing the attacker to ooze from one map to another and take advantage of gains they're able to make, some bad stuff starts to happen. And where do we see it? Well, not a lot here. The real advances on this map have been going straight towards Munich. And there's, that's the edge of the world. So we don't have anything we can expand off of that to. Yeah, there's been some effort to try to coordinate, and here we got a little bit of a breakthrough, which could subvert that line completely. But over here, well, again, so far the barrier between the two maps hasn't really caused much issue. But once we get to this side, the Bayard map has been badly subverted from the 5th Corps map, and the North German plain has been equally badly subverted from the Bayard map. Here we are on Friday morning, and ready to face the NATO reactions. We got some reinforcements, I think, coming on over there, a couple Germans, some French. And I think we got Dutch coming in over here. And of course, well, wait, we got a few more Brits. Not much. It's like motorized infantry or something. They're kind of cool because they're full battalions, so they can take hits, and they have an okay defense. They're not bad. They're not as lousy as the armored cav up at the front is, as the covering force, which is kind of weird. Like, if you had these things as your covering force, you'd actually have, well, they're full battalions. The armored cav is a company, so yeah, I guess it's fair. All right, and those Dutch don't come in until turn 4, and that may be where the break actually is. 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. First turn had some German reinforcements. It's going to make things kind of tough. The first thing is, a few British units managed to slip the trap over here. That's a big deal. Yeah, I gave up ground, but now I'm beginning to get what looks like it might be a line over here. Of course, so if they hadn't been able to, maybe I fall back or something. I don't know, but I think I can build something that can defend a line along here, which means I kind of have to try to hold Hanover. It becomes the anchor of the line there, but if I give up Hanover, I give up this flank, and you just can't do that. Mainly got the Germans out of the pocket over here. This doesn't look all that strong, but it's not forward movement, and maybe I don't have to defend as hard. I'm looking at the US unit up here and thinking, you know, I was planning on getting that with the other US units, but the other US units are quite far away. I think, and there's more over here, I think that is best used throwing it into the line here. This line is just too weak and too likely to collapse. And, you know, yeah, these guys I think are still recovering pretty heavily. Well, some of them are okay. And I could actually move the recovering guys down. That wouldn't be a bad idea either. They're not in that bad a shape. And try to create some sort of defense maybe across here with them. There may not be time, but to get, this guy can get down there, but those guys have some work to do. I gotta look up the supply rules on these roads, whether or not those are NATO roads. The NATO troops came from them, but there would be a reasonable argument to think that if the Soviets were invading West Germany, they would also do some sort of naval interdiction and operations to quickly grab some of those ports and everything and make that not a viable supply route. Certainly would do that in the game NATO. You would try to pocket something like this. In the new version of these games, and I kind of feel so sorry for the designer because he came up with something so brilliant and innovative, and yes, I understand it wasn't all that well received, and I get some of the ideas why, and I get some of the places where maybe you can argue it doesn't work, but, and then basically, I mean, the sequence of play for this new one is just so sparse. It's basically an I go, you go, move, fight. The only kind of special thing that's built in is helicopter fighting, which may be more detailed, but I doubt it. Nothing is more detailed. But it's really a very simple game. But it doesn't even include supply rules. Now, here's the thing. And this is the argument. The simple level of game that it is, if you had supply in it, units, like that level of simplicity, units would just be destroyed for being out of supply, which clearly isn't reasonable in, say, a 5-day period. Anything can kind of scrounge around and survive for that long in some sort of format. It works really well with the friction points because that's the ammo resupply. That's the rations and whatnot coming. That's replacement troops getting rushed into these units. It's everything, you know. But you can't simply say the unit's gone because of that. Now, one thing you could do is like just say, well, units, you could determine supply and units could be halved if they're out of supply. But there's just no rules for a supply line that I can see in the game at all. It's just like these things are completely, fully functional without any supply whatsoever. And the halving might be too much, right? Consider what being out of supply does on here. You don't recover your 1 friction point per half day. That's not that much. For artillery, it's a bigger deal, but yeah. So there's no answer here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say during the first 4 days, they have supply. And after that, we can assume that this is interdicted, which means, the first 4 terms, which is sort of where everything kind of goes to hell for the Soviets. But it means that this area is not going to be a viable defensive line. And there's really no way for the Germans to get out of there. These guys they could shift the artillery out, but I'm kind of using them. So I think this cluster will just fall within a couple of days. Like, it'll start falling apart very shortly. Of course, the Soviets will probably have them ringed by that point. So that U.S. unit moved down here, some West Germans into this area, the Dutch over here. It's not perfect. Still got a few more choices to make. There's things like, this guy. I could move him maybe. I'm also thinking about getting this guy out of there. He's not really doing me a lot of good where he is anymore. If I'm giving up this river section, yeah, he provides a little protection to this thing, but not much. And he could fill in a gap somewhere useful, like here, where I've got a definite fucking hole. At least to this thing. Like, he can go screw with my artillery, and I don't have much I can do about it. But if I put somebody in his way, that would help a lot. And that's about it. These Dutch are pretty tired. I got a couple of German artillery to still deploy. These guys, I can move them forward. It's probably wise to get things a little bit closer to the front. It's going to take them just as long to recover either way, and the fight's not going to be up here, I hope. If it is, I've lost, right, as far as I'm concerned. But on the other hand, they're a little bit more fragile. That I could actually lose them in fighting. The one thing that I very seldom mention, like I very seldom talk much, I talk a lot about Raid, how much I hate it, how annoying it's being to my life and whatnot, but it was kind of cool. I drew a major champion that I really wanted today on sort of a last draw. I wasn't particularly drawing for this champion. I was drawing for an event or whatever, but the champion was at a bonus, and I had spent a lot of shards or whatever to bring things out already to achieve the event, and this was the last sort of 5% chance, I think, 1% chance of getting not that champion, but something good, one of their higher level champions, and within that, then there's 200 champions that I could get, but this one has 15 times as many chances of showing up as any of the others, which isn't a terribly good. It's still so it's I had a 1% chance of a 5% chance, which you can kind of calculate out on that particular draw. I had done a lot of other draws that, you know, were much more likely. So that was kind of cool. Better than what I'm working for, you know, on the event, right? Definitely one of the top champions in the game, and I'm working on a couple of events right now, one of which has a pretty decent champion and one which has kind of an unknown that seems so-so and okay, and, you know, pretty decent, but not at the level of either of the others. Anyway, they kind of rank them, you know, and this other one is like, yeah, maybe a B tier, you know. I did move the US down. I know where I want them. I know what I want them doing. These Germans, you know, here's part of the problem. I don't know where I want them. They're not healthy enough that I would push them to get into the line. And they're, if I move them in the wrong direction, if I chose incorrectly, I've slowed their recovery. You know, I've slowed where they're eventually going to get to. I'm not going to be where I want to get to this turn, no matter what. Now, if there's a massive breakthrough, it's possible that moving them forward is helpful. I'm using the same thinking with the Dutch, except that I kind of know where I want the Dutch to be. I want them down here, so maybe I will push them down. This is the accurate final resting place for this map. You can see I bolstered the Dutch. I've got the Germans lining up over here. This poor guy is off on his own, but he's safe for this turn. If I can get the breakthrough, you know, that he tried to wedge his way for, I'm in okay shape. The artillery's protected, though, sort of. That's not very much protection. I looked up the rules, and essentially there is no way for any of these units to get across the Elbe. So they're all trapped, and I don't know what my supply rules are going to be, but you know, if I cut them off, they're not getting any supply, and I can slowly wear them down. So Hamburg is a lost cause, I would say. The question is, how much can I expend on trying to reduce it when my main goal is pushing forward? So we may not actually see it completely taken. I mean, city fighting in 5 days isn't going to take a city that size usually anyway, which might be part of the reason for the territorial brigades. But that's okay. I just don't think I can take it anyway, either way. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I came up with as a defensive line. I think it's close to the best that I could manage given the circumstances, including the die rolls, you know, on who can withdraw and who can't. Brits holding the line up here. Hey, it's not necessarily that strong, you know, but it's not bad. It's not bad. There are probably weaker places to hit. It's just each attack now becomes a really, really hard operation. Whereas early in the game, first of all, you were hitting the very light units, and then you've got all the surprise, all the advantages for the initial turns for the Warsaw Pact. I guess we move on to the Bayar map and try to extend this. I don't know. I don't know if I really have the energy to work my way through a lot. I mean, it is a Friday, but I hate to leave myself partway through something like this before dancing. Oh, I almost feel like the Bayar map is the linchpin in this case. Before it had been the 5th Corps map, and it might still be, in terms of like where I needed to work towards. But this one is really worrisome. I've got a nice connection here. I've got a drive up here, but then we've got this nasty insertion. And I kind of think that I want to leave this for last to see if there's anything available from 5th Corps that might help me create a defense. But I think the defensive line that I want is going to be, geez, see, this penetration is annoying. I'm going to have to pull back a little bit and curve down and then try to keep this as much as I can, which I could start doing, but I think I want to have the information from Fifth Corps first, so I think I move over here and see, Jesus, whether there's anything that can defend this shit. Problem, we still got units coming down from here. This guy just came on the map, trying to rush to find a way to the lines. Only 6 movement points too. The rest of the reinforcements available, some French coming in, some Germans. I think the two systems use different reinforcement techniques because movement points are set for the different formations in this, and honestly, both the French and Germans coming on the same road, but the French have 6 movement points, the Germans have 4. Well, anyway, I kind of split the difference. In terms of the rule set for this game, for the original game, was that anything that enters on the road, everything else has to pay to come in, and actually, these should be spaced out even more, because these are roads. But it just, it feels like that's actually taken into account by the fact that the Germans were given less movement points. But like I said, I'm splitting the difference. I think, honestly, probably should have given 12 movement points to everybody entering or whatever, but Beor started the concept of, I think Beor did, of having units enter with less movement points. So we'll keep with that. Now, where the fuck is the defense line for this? I don't know. You know, something like this. He's sitting in a useful location right now because of this unit, but I can't really cut the checks off there, can I? I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously, they're in supply, so what the hell? So, pulling back along here, it's not good defensive terrain, but it's what we can do to maintain the line that we've got. We've got a fair amount of line here. Yeah, we're penetrated. Oh wait, that's a French unit. Oh God, I really hate that they made the Czechs and the French look similar. The original set, the color mix, thank you Redmond Simonson, is actually just so wonderful. No, everything was fine. The East Germans were a particular color, the Czechs are a particular color, but they're all shades of the same sort of RGB side of things, right? There's a reddish purplishness to that. And all the units that were on the NATO side were likewise picked from the same kind of color palette, but again, you know, you could tell, yeah, the Brits, the Germans, maybe they looked a little close, but there was sort of this muted understanding of whose was what. Here, I can't fucking tell. These guys look like these guys, and I can't tell you which one belongs. These guys look like these guys, you know? They're this kind of, I don't know, there's just a certain tendency of the shading that makes them look like they're all the same force. And then the fact that the Dutch and the French are exactly the same color is really fucking disturbing. Now, for anybody now, you're probably saying, wow, seriously, color palette limitations? What the fuck? Yeah, I'm assuming this was, you know, at the time that this was made by Volhers, that really, it was very difficult to get the kind of color discrimination that you can get now. Although, here's the problem. This is 2014. Now this is version 2. He may have made the counters for an earlier version, but I'm just thinking, you know, unless these were made in 1995 or something, and still kicking around from then, in which case probably the entire countermix could have been redone with a better palette. By 2010 or so, I mean, you could do this in paint, right? And get whatever fucking colors you wanted. You could almost exactly match the colors that were in the original set. So I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about here. I take the excuse at face value, but I think what really happened was the countermix. The counters were made earlier than anything was released, and then never upgraded. At least not the version that I have, and it's really, really a shame, because if they were the right colors, it would mix in very nicely. All right. Yeah, I honestly thought that this was a check unit there. Well, that means I have a few units here that I could actually boot forward. I didn't throw anything in the way to defend, but that's actually a big deal, because I need to fill in here. This section here is very weak. I tried to get this guy out. He failed. He could have snuck out this way. And I'm looking at, well, do I have to steal units, from the Hoff Gap map, which isn't exactly well defended either at this point. I managed to constitute some kind of defensive line in that gap that I identified. I'm not sure what to do with the bulge yet. I'm going to hold off on that. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with myself. It's like, I don't know, a couple hours before I have to play Raid and then go dancing. And I kind of want to take a nap. I slept relatively late, but I just kind of want to lie down. I don't really want to play this. I could probably get through the maps in those couple hours. I'm finding, it's not too hard to find my defensive line wherever I want to, excluding things like the colors being confusing, really fucking confusing. But this is going to be kind of a gnarly problem with that unit back there. The rest of the map, I'm being penetrated. It sucks. It sucks. I'm being penetrated and I don't want it. And I don't like it. Yeah, so like the river line is such a good defensive posture that it really hurts to lose ground there. And there's not much behind it as part of the issue. When you come over here, it's like, yeah, this is all nasty shit. I mean, sure, I don't want to get into these plains here, but if I do, I fall back to the city, right? But there's like, I feel completely flexible in terms of how I want to defend this. Whereas when I have something like a river line to defend, it's like, yeah, but it's fallen, now what? Now what do I do? Can I hold portions of it like I've done over here? Yeah, you can. Anyway, this really is a tricky problem. So I could shorten my line by cutting these units out, bringing it up to here. That might not be unwise. That would give me additional units to fill in up here, but I am giving up some nice defensive locations, a couple of cities here that I really don't like giving up, but I don't think I have any choice. I might have choice, but that would be dependent on, hey, can I flow more units over here? I feel like I'm going to need the units that are on that line right now to defend it, so I think I do need to shorten my line there. That's the decision I'm making. The other choice would be to start working from over here again across, and again, I'm getting to the, I don't know where the linchpin is, but I'm pretty sure this isn't it. So let's flow those units back and see what happens. But that could actually weaken the defenses here. This was a nice little redoubt. Little problem with my solution, there are no roads going through here. Not even access ways. This is kind of wilderness. So it was hard for me to get to where I want to get to. In fact, I couldn't. But overall, I still think it's the best thing. If need be, I can always expend a friction point to move up. Anyway, the decision's been made to pull out. Things get even uglier up here where I've got a couple of penetrated check units. I can't reasonably withdraw everywhere, you know? But trying to build this line while I'm looking at my artillery behind me being interfered with, that's not pleasant. And I don't know what the hell I can do about this. I got like this one armored cav here. Sorry, mechanized unit. It has a 2 strength. It feels like it's tiny, but 2 is pretty potent. I need to get something in here, because what is there is artillery and an engineer, which is no good. I try to position some units to deal with this incursion. I can try to cope with each of the little incursions on their own. I think I may have enough troops to be able to. That would be the best solution, honestly, rather than just fall back to, say, a line like this. I think. I don't know. This is pretty much what I've come up with. A defensive line trying to hold them close to the river line, reduce their advances right now. Pinning this down, I don't know why this guy's out here. I think I moved him back to get there. But that should hinder Soviet advances a fair amount. Now, these units that I've tilted are because artillery came off of them. I wanted to withdraw the artillery. And they're doing, you know, I'm willing to sacrifice an armored cav here and there in order to do things. This one's more problematic because this guy could attack there and get to this pile of artillery. I don't have a good answer, except maybe that this guy probably could have gotten there. This is just a couple of armored cav too, but it's a couple of them, which gives a little bit more defense. Let's say that this guy made it here. I think he could have done so because he came from down here, and he's not really doing a job. This thing that came from up here is able to cover that. That brings me to the problem here. I've got a little bit of extra force again. I've got a little bit of defense there. This is the area that the Soviets kind of evaded by pushing this way and this way, because it was a strong point, and they went to breach where they could. Well, that strong point now allows me to maybe pull out some units, but these units are all a little bit damaged. That's okay. I'm throwing damaged stuff into the, damaged and tired stuff into the line. I have to. I don't have any choice in the matter. But I may not be able to continue along this front until I cope with this. I don't know. It's getting so complicated. Anyway, time for another break. I really, seems like mail is here. Parked as though they're gonna come up. Nope, just trying to figure out. And I got nothing. All right. Not really expecting anything. Oh, wait, another pile of stuff? Not for me. This is how I entertain myself. I see if I have to go down and get mail. She's still working. And she goes away. Okay. It's exciting, man. The excitement of my life. You know, even when my wife was alive, we made kind of a big deal about watching the mail get delivered, watching the trash cans get picked up. It's especially exciting for her because not the mail, but some of the other stuff. Certainly the trash truck, but some of the other things that they do on the roads here, she just sees as so cartoony. Anyway, I just don't. I'm really struggling. Like every attempt to build a defensive line is a very, very difficult thing to do. Now, it's not as difficult as the attacks are, but it's more pre-planned than the attacks are. With the attacks, I'm like I focus on one little group, but here I've got to focus on, hey, what is the integrity of this line as a whole so that something like this doesn't break through? And obviously I didn't do a very good job previously, but I don't know that you have much chance to. And the game puts you in a position where the attacker has a lot of power. Anyway. Funny for me to say that because, look, the attacker has had to, I'm always saying the defense has a lot of advantages, but the attacker has a lot of power in terms of maneuver to avoid where the defender is in this system. What the attacker doesn't have is a lot of capability to overcome actual resistance. I've never been a person for wars of maneuver. I'm not that clever kind of war gamer. I'm the, let's chuck some dice and see what happens. I don't know. So here it is, Sunday, about midday, I guess. And I'm going to try to finish up that first NATO turn. On the bright side, my wheels for my cart arrived, but I look at them and yeah, I think they're fine. They're going to be a little heavy, but I feel like I need something in there. I've got other hardware coming, but I don't know what to use. Like there's got to be some kind of little rubber gasket or something like that I can stick in there to help keep it from being metal on metal. I don't think that's a good idea, and I think that might damage my cart, and I don't know what I should be looking for. I don't even know the term to use, being fairly unmechanical. But yeah, let's see if we can rectify some of the defensive lines that I was having trouble with. Full of artillery on this map that I hadn't taken care of, but I start puttering around, start building my defense around Hanover, start building my defense across here. It's all looking really good. And then I hit the uh-oh, which is where I probably should have been focusing. But the problem is this is right in the middle. That whole, build in towards something. It makes the most sense to build in towards this. But I'm having a hard time finding anything now, in part perhaps because I'm defending this bulge here, because I don't want to, I didn't want to do a couple of things with this piece. I didn't want to take a chance that he doesn't get out of there and get stuck there anyway and waste an FP on it. He's also tying down an artillery, which is kind of cool. But, I'm kind of running out of defenses here. I feel like I need one more unit here. I might have some Brits who can make it in general into that position. Then I can pull the Belgian back. But what is going to cover this? These units are a little far forward. I kind of need to leave them there. There's a lot of artillery back here. I can abandon Castle. I don't want to, but I can. And maybe peel a little off of here. But it's going to be tough. And I think I stop working on this map and move back over to the 5th Corps map, start moving in, see how much I can reduce the forces that are in the front line here, because I'm actually doing okay on the 5th Corps map. If I can prevent this breakthrough and prevent any kind of breakthrough up here, the 5th Corps map will hold on pretty well. And it's got terrain that I can give up. Again, as opposed to like these river lines and stuff that are causing some real angst on my part. I cannot let, so it's kind of weird because of the dual situation of the victory conditions. NATO could conceivably say, screw it, there's nothing up here, fuck that, let's let it go. Well, I can't really do that. One, it would subvert the 5th Corps map, which is problematic. And two, I do have to still take into account what the Warsaw Pact victory conditions are, right? Like the idea of just letting them spearhead into the next map or whatever that doesn't exist yet just feels absolutely wrong. There's no way to like quantify between the two victory conditions, but I do feel like I have to try to stop their victory conditions as well as achieve my own. I guess the compromise is kind of a, hey, compare the two victory conditions and see who did better, and therefore you still do want to stop them. But I actually feel, because of the doctrinal side of things, that both sides would focus more on their own victory conditions, which there's nothing, under that mechanism that really requires you to do that, or encourages you to do that. We do have a fair amount of reserves in the back here. They're pretty shot up. They got hit by that initial artillery barrage or whatever and have not recovered. I may just need to bite the bullet and, move things into places that aren't really ready for the fight, because I need a lot of units to cover this. A whole lot of units. God. If I gave up this bulge, that would do me a lot of good. I think I need to pull back to the river there. I don't know why I was trying to hold that. Fortunately, I think it means giving this piece up. 6, 7, 8 movement points to here. I made the roll, but I'm willing to undo that. Like if I'd failed the roll, I would just flip him. But now, having made the roll, I just don't see a way he can get out of here. Quite often, maybe I can slip around this way or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could slip down to there. Yeah, let's do that. Gives me, screw it. Let's just leave them up here and uncommitted. And I'll try to get these guys out. They should be able to cover some ground. They should be able to make it because they're not engaged. These guys should be able to make it. I'll change where he moved to. He's got a lot of places he could go to if I am thinking straight. Still doesn't buy me a whole hell of a lot. Getting things out was not at all easy. Crossing the river is particularly difficult, and I don't have engineers kicking around over on this map for some reason, or I didn't go hunt them down. So I didn't gain much, but I got people within striking range that maybe they could get in there with another operation or something, but yeah, it's not pretty looking. Right, that may well be it. I've actually managed to get a fair amount of forces into play. Now there's a hole right here that the Soviets could try to exploit, and it wouldn't be too hard. You can pull this artillery back a little bit, that might help. I wasn't able to get anybody in there. Is that just stupidity? I have a U.S. unit I can pull in there. So yeah, I've got this extra U.S. unit here. Maybe that can make it into that hole. It's not optimal. It's U.S. There's no U.S. support over here, but I did move a unit under that unit so that I could replace that unit somewhere a little further in. Is there a German unit that I could replace? I can conceivably get somebody like this up into there. That might make more sense to keep the U.S. units near each other. It's not like I have artillery support over here though either, and these are nice big meaty U.S. units. They can handle quite a bit. But yeah, I managed to cover that. I'll get back to it and whatever. But let's take a look at what the line is. So Germans manage a line across here. This cuts off. Not much has changed here. Protecting Nuremberg, protecting the river line. We got some exploitation happening. That sucks, but you can't completely defend anything, At great cost, the attacker can make advances. And that may be the intentional design, honestly. Cutting over here, up along here, it all looks pretty decent to me. as decent as I could manage, given these incursions across the river, given how much territory I lost on that map, right? Then we come here and things get messy. We get down to Castle. Not great, but, you know, you'd prefer the every other hex that's standard. And then there's a big gap here that can be dealt with, but I've got that all sort of covered. That US unit dropping in there will do a lot for this. And then we come back down to the Vester line, and that looks okay. There is a space that could be driven through here. I think it's probably worth moving into there to ensure that that doesn't fall, because this is too nasty a gap. So we haven't handled that yet, but we'll try to do what we can. Over here in Hanover, no problem. We did manage to hold Castle still. And then we get up to the river line here, cut down, and then a big holding all the way over to Hamburg over here with a fairly sturdy. I'm pretty happy with what we're doing on the North German plain. That's a tough, like, if things break beyond what they are, though, it's going to be really, really ugly, because there's a lot of territory to be gained there. I have some weirdnesses going on, right? Like units like this, fine, it's just, in this, it's just caught behind lines or close to behind where I retreated from and couldn't get out of, and tough shit, you know, that's going to happen. This is an uglier little pocket. I don't like what's going on here. The confusion around this area is really, really nasty, and, you know, trying to abandon this didn't get me very far, because this terrain is absolute hell, and you add the river and it just becomes worse. There's not a lot of paths following the little black diamonds. I don't know if we have any other defects of that nature. You know, we have defects that the attackers created, things like this, that it's like, yeah, whatever, I don't know what that's going to turn out as, but okay. You know, I'm sure he'll be able to use it next turn. It'll still be in supply, but whatever. But yeah. So let me try to fix those couple errors that I detected. And then we go to a Warsaw Pact turn. Gotta remember, I can only move, what's up here? There's some motorized shit I didn't bring on too. Gotta look that up. I can only move, like, movement costs one ops point extra for each hex that I go, except on the Autobahn. And that is, at this point, and that is going to be a significant factor to keep in mind. I cheated on turn 2, allowed both sides far more movement than they should have been allowed. I think I caught everything. That motorized unit, I got one of them over here. That, I don't know how much help that is. The other two are heading down this way. They come in actually at the airbase here. So I'm assuming they're being lifted in, and with only 6 movement points, which would be what they would get if they were being transported by helicopter or whatever. So that all makes sense. The only problem is trying to find them by the Beor reinforcement chart, but that's fine. All right, it's time for me to think about raid again some more, and I put a fair amount of play in, which I'm pretty happy with. What, you know, Friday, go dancing, and oh fuck, the fog. The last couple of times the fog has, the last couple of times that I've dealt with fog has been really kind of magical. One time was maybe about a month ago on the walk home, actually from someone's house, but like I went to the bar that ended up somewhere that I shouldn't have gone for too long, and but I got to walk home in the fog in that day, and then last night on the way, or Friday night on the way, this is Sunday, on the way to the bar, the fog was there. And I had kind of a mystical experience that was pretty intense. You know, mainly just in my head, whatever, like things normally would be put aside, but there were enough weird things going on at once that it triggered us something interesting. And you know, I look and everything's so foggy. I'm like, Jesus, if I'm getting these cool experiences, I really ought to go out in it and see what happens, see if anything special happens. But I don't know. It's like there's something hinting to me. Anyway, the problem with all that, after I turn off the camera and turn it back on, the problem with all that is Raid eats up so much of my fucking time. I have some daylight hours here that I want to, you know, take advantage of and play at least some of the game. And I'm left with, and I also tend to wake up kind of at weird hours anyway. And it's just very, very hard to convince myself. Plus it's fucking cold and unpleasant, and chances are so low that anything will happen, even, you know, I don't know. Time for the great question that this game really does the best out of everything at posing. Is it worth pushing my units? What will I gain if I push my units? And for the Soviets, I've got to start looking in an instance by instance case, where do I think I might want to? First questions though with that is, what resources do I have? And that's pretty low. Not a lot of EW. Not sure where I have it. Got one on BR, one on some on 5th Corps. I got 2 on BR. And a whole bunch on the Donau front. But I also only have 2 air points. Now, beyond that, where are potential places? Well, one is here. Hey, I might want to break through here, try to punch a hole. I might be able to get an advantage by pushing a little harder right now. Others are these other breakthroughs on the river are very, very intriguing. Am I sitting in a position where I've got a potential for a heavier attack, or a better attack than I'm going to get next turn? You know? Well, next turn I get to go first. So as long as NATO doesn't react, there's absolutely no reason for me to do anything right now, right? Except that I have a couple air points left that I didn't spend. This, you know, I could bust this up, get to that artillery, but I could probably do that anyway if I hold off. I'm most interested right now, so far, this looks the most interesting to me out of all the potentials. Sometimes there might be hey, like there was last turn, an opportunity where I could have raced a little harder and gotten a little bit further, but I'm not seeing any big openings anywhere. This has been closed off. Probably don't want to push it too much harder. This is not an interesting insertion as far as I can see. Here there's an interesting possibility. Units that cannot react that I could conceivably bust through. That's very intriguing. The fact that they did not expend extra movement or a movement means that they're really vulnerable, and I could actually gain a lot off them. Okay, let's think. Look, I'm really tempted here, but there's a problem. It's Brits covering here. They have a helicopter up here. I have no EW. I don't think I can get an advantage on them without the EW. I just don't think I can hit it. I could set up a huge multi-hex battle, gain a friction point for every unit I move, another friction point for every other unit. I don't think so there. So now I return back to, I guess, this one. And I look around. And this is the Hoff Gap map. I'm sure I have EW on that one, right? I do not. I managed to use all of Hofgap. So really all I have is Mayor, 5th Corps, and done out front. But not really. Like I say, really that's all I have. It's not the case. The reason that I can't do the attack here is because of this helicopter up there. But if I do multiple attacks, that helicopter is not going to do shit. What kind of hits am I going to get here? Well, this is a 3-point unit. I could actually get across the river and launch attacks on it without the river in place. I can move artillery support into place, which will help. I'm probably looking at 14-3 for an attack, which is with a little bit of artillery support, etc. I can get maybe to 6-1 in the plane. That's not too bad. 6-1, like for a starter, throw some chemicals, some smoke in. I don't have helicopters of my own that I want to expend for this. They'll just get hurt. So yeah, do I want to take a shot at it? Sure. Calculation. Let's say I want to move this guy. I would move artillery up first and whatnot. 1.5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I can move there. I don't get an attack. I think the cost is too high for me to launch the attack there. So now we think about over here. What can we fucking do here? There's some artillery here, which could impact this. That's in okay terrain. Somebody was mentioning you shouldn't be able to look to see. He had a couple of suggestions, neither of which I like. One of which is no peeky. The only thing that not peeking really accomplishes in this game for the attacker in general, because usually you're facing one unit, is how badly damaged the unit is. That is something that the people who are in contact with it know pretty well. And will be able to come back with, a response. If high command says, do you think you can take that? They say, yeah, I don't think so. They're still fighting pretty hard. So that would be something that essentially the information should be available at least locally. And that means unless the overall commander, fucks up or something, they probably are going to make their decisions based on that. Of course, you can add all kind of weird levels into stuff here. So this is 12-4. That's like a 3-1 attack that I could launch. Since I'm already in contact, it's like more valuable. Here I could do a multi-hex attack. And if it's a... this one's looking more tempting now. Like at first I was like, that was like the third choice for me. But I've got EW. I've got units for a multi-hex attack. I've got support behind it. I'm in a city. If I move the engineer up first, I get a shift off that. I think actually I got a pretty good combination there. And that breakthrough, if it happens, I doubt it will, but if there's a breakthrough there, the advance is not impeded by the fact that I've already conducted operations. So follow-up attacks kind of make more sense, I think, than moving into position, than any kind of mobile fighting would. So I look over here and I'm like, well, it looks tempting, but when I count it out for what I'd want to move before I launch my attack, I've spent all my movement points to get into range. And without an engineer in place, yeah, that's just not going to work. After throwing everything in place, I'm getting an 18-1 mobile attack. I'm going to do a prepared attack. Why? Because I only have 2 air points, and I'm using the air points for the chemicals. I'm not getting gas off of that, or smoke off of that, but okay. So, (18:1) in a city. There's an engineer present. That's 2 to the right, isn't it? There's smoke and chemical, or there's chemicals present, gets me all the way over there. That gives me a little bit of edge. Now we check the EW check there, and we fail. And that means I look around, and I'm like, oh, maybe these guys should have run away. They feel relatively safe and in and of themselves. So from here, I have some artillery that can engage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got one artillery there. I got an artillery here that looks like it can engage. Definitely throw this one in. I don't think I have another. I got another helicopter way up here, but that guy moved. And I will if I have to. Let's take a look at what we're looking at then. We were looking at 36 strength points. 36 to 3 drops it to 12 to 1. That doesn't really help me. I don't even gain a column off that. So yeah, we'll throw a helicopter in too. So now it shoots up from 36 to 3, and I'm sure that's within range. I can dangle this and kind of show. Maybe I need hands. It's easily within range. Let's not commit this artillery anymore. It was 36 to 2. Make it 36 to 9 because the helicopter lands there full on. I can make it 36 to 10, which makes it 3 to 1 instead of 4 to 1. Helps protect my helicopter. Sounds good. Okay. So now we're 3 to 1 in the city. Engineer. And some gas. Prepared attack. This could hurt. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 0-1. It does nothing to the defender. Now I can launch this same attack again, firing off some more artillery. I believe the gains are so high that the 50-50 chance of the EW is worth doing it all over again. Only the artillery is taking an additional hit off this. It's such a big die roll, we're going to do it in the open. I really believe this is a major impact if this succeeds or not. We don't get it, but again, this is going to force the Germans to throw their helicopter in again, and maybe one of those artillery, just to make it ugly. It's possible I could get a bad result, so I want to throw the artillery in too, just to protect my helicopters, honestly. All those shells bursting around make it easier for the helicopters to operate safely. We said we were on this column, the results are exactly, or the situation is exactly the same. We get a 3, that's another 0-1, no impact whatsoever. I would have really liked a 1, it would do 2 hits, knock that helicopter not out of the sky, but to where it's like really unable to do anything for a couple of turns, basically. And we didn't get anywhere. Now we take an additional hit on every unit. Those artillery that are involved in that are not in great shape. And what's happened is I've given up my opportunity to attack this next turn has basically faded away. But I have a huge advantage. Same reason that I had an advantage potentially over here, which is that a lot of these units didn't do anything. Which I might have wanted to flip them over to maintain some sort of mobile response, right, on the NATO turn. I don't think that way usually. I hate like wasting resources of any kind. But I would get them back, so it would actually have been a wiser move to flip things face down or whatever in order to give them that mobile response. by not doing so, I made this an interesting choice for the Soviets. I think they're done though, and now I go back. Watch some more video because it's not quite time for raid yet, and come back for any possible. Wow, does NATO absolutely need to do anything for next turn? I don't think they do, but they could push some units. If I had stuff that could clear this, I would like to. Well, I actually cleared this one. That's why that helicopter is there. This one is not cleared, and I don't have a unit, that was in position to do that. All right, so that's probably it for NATO, but I haven't made my decision final yet. So as to not miss out on what tiny little bit of light there's left, it's like, what? Almost 4 p.m. 5 p.m. for me. But I did make some choices with the NATO moves, and we had like here, I tried to move this guy. He failed. Didn't hurt him. He picked up a hit that he's going to get back. But I did move this guy. I can't go very far because of the penalties, but I just feel like I'm in a stronger position than maybe being chased down this way or something. Or having my supply cut off where I couldn't recover. There were a couple of these little moves here and there, edge case things like that. I did pull these guys across the river. Crossing the river is relatively cheap in a later impulse. Why? Because like moving along the road, moving from here to here would normally cost you 1 movement point. Now it costs 1, 2, 3. But crossing the river, and I say relatively cheap, costs 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I may have cheated actually. I think I only charged them 3 for the river, but whatever. So they made their way across. This guy pulled back a little bit. I didn't like where he was. This guy, I should have fucking moved him before. I chose not to because he was kind of an interesting speed bump, and now I'm kind of regretting because I could have gotten him out, and up to join these instead. We do have this interesting situation of these 3 armored cav units just sitting there. Now, if they succeeded in breaking contact, they could if they had done it on their first move, they could have gotten back up here and been in great shape. But they're holding up what, a whole division? Yeah, it looks like 1 division plus some excess resources. That's not bad, And when they do retreat, well, unless this gap gets closed, that's the problem. They might end up just dying. And these are all 1-2 units. They have a 2 defense. That makes them a lot more potent otherwise. So not a lot has changed there. I'm going to load this up, and then I have the long job of flipping counters, which I'm not going to do right now. And honestly, like most of this game, it's kind of a pain in the ass to do late at night. When it's dark, I just don't have much light right in this area. I could, again, I have one more of these stand-up lamps that I could assemble, but I never do. And otherwise, the only other thing I could have done was set the tables up so that they were kind of here near this light. That would have helped tremendously, but that would eat up parts of my living room that I absolutely, it would just create too much of a pain, and I'd probably fall on the table on my way, when I get home after drinking or whatever. But yeah, now considering this wheel, I looked online and nobody seems to talk about putting any kind of protection for the axle there. I mean, obviously I could put some grease or something in there, and that would do something. So that's probably the best move, rather than using some piece of hardware. Anyway, up it goes, and I'm just musing to myself because I don't fucking know. Like every wheel that I've gotten so far has been plastic. That's been part of the problem. The damn little plastic wheels, like the center part of the plastic just ends up grinding on the metal. And, you know, when I take it over I don't know, like a root or, you know, a pavement deformation or something like that, with a couple 100 pounds on it or whatever, it ends up not, you know, slowly degrading the wheels. And I've had to buy new wheels every couple of years, and I'm just thinking, well, the reason I got my metal wheels is so that I don't have to do that, but I don't want to wreck the damn cart in doing that, either one of them. All right. And I still don't have my cotters pins, which were part of the same order. Like Amazon sends you, like, you know, sometimes they send it all together. It's really amazing. Like this box is almost the same size as what's inside of it. But yeah, sometimes, quite often they send you like everything that you ordered. And I ordered like 3 things: the wheels, some cotter's pin set, a whole bunch of them. And because like when I tried to order individual, it was horrible. Plus, I don't know quite what size I need. You know, I don't know how they're measured and whatnot. I know what I need when I look at it, and I don't want to go to a hardware store to save a couple of bucks that way. And I've also ordered some socks, right? But the other stuff hasn't come. I can do without socks. The socks that I ordered are actually regular white socks, which I actually have some perfectly fine ones, but I'm just keep hoping that if I keep ordering more socks, I'll eventually throw out the ones that I actually wear, which are the ones that are really, really damaged, like that are in worse shape than what I'm wearing right now, or about the same. These are just my winter slippers. Slippers never work for me. They last, you know, a few, maybe a couple years, and then they just get so fucking gross that, like, you have to get rid of them. And it's like, well, if I have to throw something out, it might as well be fucking cheap socks instead. Not that cheap, but